welcome to another episode of Unpublished. My name is Amy.
I'm James.
And today we have our gorgeous friend Natasha Kaz with us.
Hello.
Natasha. Natasha is an actor, an entrepreneur, a coach. She's actually our coach at the gym we go to, and we're really grateful that you're coming to spend time with us today.
Oh, I feel very privileged. Thank you.
It's so lovely to have you on.
So there's lots to talk about today, but we would love to talk about your journey diving into acting, like how this came about, what it's like to audition. We'd love to talk about the intersection of like entrepreneurship and creativity, like how running your own businesses has served you coming, into this acting career. Where should we start, James?
Well, I want to start with the business thing because, so Tash, you and your husband Sean have run multiple businesses now, and
Yes.
we're always talking to our creators about how you should be treating your creative journey as a business.
Yes.
And you as the product.
Yeah.
Do you feel like having run businesses, that's helped translate it all into you starting out as an actor now?
There's definitely like a nice kind of connection, and it helps you understand a lot about it as well. But and then at the same time, it's so much easier to promote something external.
Yeah. Yes, that is such a good point.
It's so much easier to promote maybe something physical or
because you guys have run
service.
because you had Rue Grips, which was a gymnastic grip company, right?
Yeah.
And it's like when you sell a grip, you don't have to like be vulnerable or
Exactly. Yeah. You're not promoting yourself. You're promoting, this product that you have built and loved, which, and in turn, it's quite sad because, why should you be so ashamed to promote yourself? Like you're loving something that you've built. You love this service that you can give. You feel confident in it, which in turn just makes you turn around and go, wow, am I really not that confident or in love with myself to just kind of be like, are we allowed to swear?
Yeah.
Be like, fuck yeah, like I'm so worth this.
Yes.
Like it's the worth and validation part of it that really comes into play with something like
we
this.
talk about this a lot. It's like no one cares about I need my profit margin on my physical product, and no one cares about charging money for that. But as soon as you're like, I'm worth, it's interesting. I don't know how you translate this to acting, but I'm worth a certain amount for an ad, or I'm worth a certain, you should be paying me for my work here. For us, it's like trying to convince ourselves that, or for Amy, it's like I'm trying to convince herself that it's worth someone paying $18.99 for her book. Whereas if that was like, I don't know, if it was a cup with her branding on it, I feel like that would seem less.
Yeah, it'd be so much
More
more
easy.
less daunting. Yeah. Oh, definitely. And it's much harder when, like, exactly that, when you're an entry level.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and for me, there's so many people in the business who are just like, you can't really put a value on yourself right now. You've got to stick to the basics, maybe even doing a lot of free work
stuff,
and just, understanding that you're doing this as a love, as a passion. Right now, you just building the foundations and building like the building blocks to it all.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's a little bit harder with that because when it comes to having a business and so set like this place, I have a price.
Yeah.
And I have, value and worth in here because it's something I've built for the last 8 to 10 years.
Yeah.
So if someone wants my time, I have no shame in being like, yep, that's fine. This is my fee as a personal trainer.
Yeah.
This is when I'm available. Like, I set my own standards as a businesswoman in here.
Yeah.
But then when it goes to acting, I'm going back to 10 years ago
Yeah.
and just being like, just 2-week trial for free, like
Try my acting.
yeah, like just taste it out, see what it's like.
Yeah.
Have you had any like stories or narratives in terms of like feeling like you having to begin again, or like narratives about having to start over? Like what's been the internal monologue of having to begin the apprentice stage?
It's history repeats itself. It's exactly what it feels like. And I was talking to Sean about this in regards to competition, and my whole mental state and my mindset is all taking me back to how it was when I was dealing with trying to compete and make it in CrossFit. My goals were always, get into the team, get the team to the games, and I hit that twice, and then make it as an individual, get on the floor at regionals. I had no games.
Can we talk a little bit about that more? Because you came from you had no athletic background at all, did you?
No, zero.
And you went from that. I mean, maybe you want to tell a story quickly.
So I just started CrossFit to get Sean's attention.
Yeah.
Worked.
It worked a treat. 10 years later. So I knew that he was in love with it, and I knew I was like, okay, well, I needed something to talk to him about, so I'll start this CrossFit thing that he's obsessed with. And I fell in love with it. I got obsessed with it. You know, I was going 5-6 days a week. Every day I was going training. And then Sean told me, if you want a coach to pay more attention to you, just walk up to Chad and say to him, I want to compete. And like, if as soon as you tell him you want to compete, whether you want to or not, they'll just pay more attention to you. And I was like, sweet. So I walked up to Chad and I was like, look, I really want to compete. But it ticked something over in me internally because it's almost as if I admitted it to myself and then that was it. I legit was competing.
It's so interesting that admitting it to yourself. I feel like often, interrupt the story for a little bit. Often as creators, I think, you know, for me, I'm like, well, I'm just writing my stories. I tell myself, I lie to myself about that. I'm like, I never let myself admit, I actually want this to be my profession. I'm just like, I'm just writing my stories. And it's a protection mechanism, right?
Yeah.
I feel like if I could actually lean into that more, it would be so much better for me.
Oh, and all of last year, while I was in full-time study of acting, it was really hard for me to say I'm an actress.
Yeah.
Every time someone heard that I was acting or doing acting or, what are you going to school for? And I was like, I'm just going to acting, you know,
for fun.
Yeah, for fun. Yeah, I was like, it's just a hobby. You know, during COVID, I kind of discovered, you know, I wanted something else to do and, you know, a little bit challenging. And I used to do it when I was younger. So I'll just go back to this thing. And for ages, I was saying, it might have been me playing around.
No, I reckon it's me. So we're having some mic issues and you know me. It's like my ultimate nightmare. I think it'll be fine.
It's gone.
It'll be fine. Yeah, it's gone.
Yeah.
What do I do?
I don't know.
I have a magic touch. It knows that I'm stressed about the mic. Yeah, you didn't want to admit.
No, so for ages, and it's still a really hard thing for me to admit, but it is that transition.
Yeah.
And like that internal monologue coming out, you know, if I'm too scared to tell someone that I'm an actress, how am I ever going to convince myself?
Yeah.
And it's the same thing. So like that's kind of with, you know, what the challenge I'm putting myself on with right now. It's the same thing. I'm going out there and I'm like, yes, I'm an actress.
Yeah. For sure.
All right, I want to talk about this challenge.
Okay,
explain. Wait,
we haven't finished Tash's
I'm sorry.
story.
I really love this challenge.
The challenge is
Can we
great.
just finish Tash's story about going from nothing to being an athlete for a second? Because I think it's a really important foundation for like where we're going to go. Talking to you about your acting as well.
And it like I said, it translates perfectly. So I started CrossFit because of that, and I'm someone who is really hard to keep like my attention span kind of going for a long period of time. So I think that's what I loved about CrossFit. It was never the same. Yeah. Like I hated going to something, and if I was going to dance, we'd be learning the same dance routine, and it was like, that was fun, but like it's a bit boring. Yeah. So when I started doing this, every day was different. You know, everything, it was like, oh my God, like I just got to that point there. There's like a whole ocean of skills and everything that I can learn.
Like I can do a pull-up and now I have to do a muscle-up.
Yeah, it just kept progressing. And then once you get to that point, then it's like do it faster and harder and heavier, and now you're competing. And that's what I loved about that. And I loved the challenge. But then when I was competing, I went through this weird mental state of comparison. And I really went into this weird lull in my training where I wasn't getting any better. I actually went worse one year and really fought with myself. But all I kept doing was just being like, why is this girl that I'm training with doing so much better than me? I train with her every day. I probably train more. You know, I've been training for the last 4 years. She just joined last year. Like, just all that typical comparison, this weird external, like,
and
I should be better than you,
achieved
envy.
more than you ever thought you would have when you first started out anyway.
Yeah, you just kind of forget to, like, that little piece of gratitude. Like, I'm so thankful for everything that's happened so far.
Yeah.
And it was just this one day, I was in the car and I could still remember, it was on the way to Newport with Sean, and I was crying about it, and he literally just turned to me, he just goes, do you think Tia Claire Toomey sits there wondering what Brooke Wells is doing? Like, maybe she does or doesn't, but like, do you think that really affects her? Like, or do you think, you know, she's sitting there going, I wonder, you know, what Katrin Davis' daughter just did today? It's like, no, she's in her own world, in her own zone, getting her job done, staying in her own lane.
So important.
Yeah.
I think I can really fall foul to comparison as well. Like,
I think
people
everyone
who
can
started
in
writing at the same time as me already have an agent or have a book deal. I'm like, what are they so much
Why?
better than me? Like, what am I doing wrong? Like, why can't I
That
make it work?
question's hard.
It
Yeah.
is.
When you start thinking, well, what am I doing wrong? And it's often just not the right question
Yeah.
to
It's
ask.
not.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It doesn't help. Like, you think, well, if I compare myself to them, then maybe I'll push myself harder and maybe I'll like get in a better position. But it doesn't work that way. You just end up, I feel like you just end up falling apart.
Yeah, exactly. And I think it ruins you mentally. You know, it turns it into a chore.
Yeah.
It turns it into a bit of a hustle, and then you fatigue yourself from
Yeah.
that, because then you're just like, why don't I love this anymore? And then
And-
after that, it just came down to I went through this. You know, I jumped on with Gabby Bernstein, just did her meditation manifestation challenges. Did a lot of gratitude work, did a lot of work to kind of just be so proud of myself. And it really came down to me just kind of doing my mental mantra every day was just like, fuck it, have fun.
Ugh,
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah, and it was just like every day just go in, find something about what you're doing and enjoy that piece of it. Like find something to make it fun.
Yeah, that's been
And-
helping me a lot lately because I've been in a little bit of a funk with my writing. But every morning when I wake up, I'm trying to have a mantra where I go, I'm excited to see what my brain comes up with today on the page. Like,
Yeah.
I'm just excited to play on the page today.
Exactly.
And find the joy in it.
And then that's such a different way to approach it then. Like
Yeah.
your mindset straight away shifts. And
Yeah.
like it might not shift that day, but I think if you do that every single day.
Oh my God,
Yes,
it's so
big time.
powerful.
It's so powerful. And then that's the next year was one of my best years, the funnest year I've ever
Yeah,
had. I
yeah.
didn't care who anyone else was, but at the same time, it shifted me for everyone else. Because if someone did better than me, I was like, yes!
Yeah.
I was so proud of them. And I
Yeah.
honestly think that like abundance in that sense works proportionately. Like if you're happy for someone, then like it's almost like a nice little gift in return.
Yeah, I love that.
Like from the universe that
Yeah.
they're going to be happy for you.
Yeah.
And then you just kind of start achieving these weird things when you just stop giving a fuck.
Yeah.
Big time.
Really?
And then, so you ended up going to the CrossFit Games twice with a
Yes.
team, which is like, for anyone who doesn't know, which is probably a lot of our audience, that's like the it's the World Championships.
Yep.
It's a big deal, a big crowd in America. It's like over multiple days competition. It's like, it's grueling as well.
It's super grueling. I'll
Yeah.
never do it again.
yeah. But it was just like, so you came from this position of basically not doing any exercise to, how long did it take between starting and going to the games?
I was on the regionals floor a year and a half later.
Wow.
Wow, that's
starting
amazing.
Wow,
CrossFit.
that's insane.
Yeah.
Yep.
How does this all translate? How do you feel like that journey has served you in your acting journey in terms of the comparison?
So it's exactly
and
the same thing,
Yeah.
if not and like that's what I'm laughing at, because I'm actually finding myself at the same place. But in like you were saying, it's helping me because I can see a lot of my other fellow friends being stuck in that rut, and
Yeah.
I know I'm there, and I'm trying to figure out how to get out of it because it's a
Yeah.
whole
Yeah.
different you know
Yes.
playing field, but I know I'm there. And I caught myself with a couple of weeks ago, I had to have a bit of time off because I started hating it.
Yeah.
I found it a chore to sit down and learn lines. I was resenting it. I was procrastinating, and I was like, this is shit. And, you know, friends of mine were landing auditions and getting paid gigs. And, like, I'm still yet to get a paid gig.
Yeah.
Everything I do is free, which, like...
Me too, Tash.
Yes, yes, a lot of us.
Yeah.
And it gets to a point now where you're just like, okay, maybe just like a little TVC to help pay back all that money I've put
for
into
sure,
it.
For sure.
But you
And
know,
it's so true because
it's still
and you've invested in the education as well.
so much.
Yeah.
So much.
That's what I feel too. Like I put thousands of dollars into writing courses and stuff. I'm
You
like,
do.
is this ever gonna like?
And you do. Like I don't regret it. Like
Yeah.
there's
100%,
certain courses
yeah.
where I'm like, were you really worth that?
Yeah, but the experience is still worth it.
But yeah, exactly. And the people you meet and the people you network with, like, initially they kind of taught you with this industry, and it's just kind of like CrossFit, exactly like that. At first, you're like, it's the acting world, it's huge. It's not, especially the Australian industry.
Yeah, yeah.
They're all so tightly knit.
Yes.
And it's all it takes is just kind of having that one or two little ins with your foot in the
Yeah.
door, and then you're done, and you just keep networking with these people. And CrossFit was kind of the same.
Yeah.
Obviously, you can't cheat way through CrossFit or anything.
You need
you've
someone
gotta
to
have
believe in you,
Yeah,
right? Yeah.
exactly. You got to find the right coaches,
Yeah.
find the right people, and then they're the people that are going to be like, hey, you know, I know someone who wants to put you in a team, and
Yes.
so it's kind of the same thing. It's just working with projects together, getting to know people. Like, for example, the school I go to, Sydney Acting Studio, there's a feature film being filmed soon. And 2 of the girls at the school are the mains, like main leads in it. And another girl got a role and auditioned for it because of those 2. They were reading the script. He was like, I'm really struggling to cast this girl. And they were like, oh, you know, we saw this one girl in our class, Anna, you know, maybe audition her. So she auditioned for it. He was like, she was perfect.
Yeah.
And they started the table read. Anna's younger sister in the script didn't turn up.
Oh,
Who they had cast. Yeah, great work ethic.
Yeah.
And so they were like, holy crap, well, you're not worth it. You know, let's recast this. And then the same thing, they reached out to Hunter, who owns the school, and he was like, well, I know another girl who'd probably be great for this, audition her. So like there's 4 girls from the school I go to. It's been just like a word of mouth audition. Yeah. And they're all in this feature film that films in June now.
Yeah. It's so interesting because like in writing, for example, they always say go to conferences because you'll meet people at conferences. And that's, but like in COVID, like I was supposed to go to the World Science Fiction Convention in 2021, and you know I was going to go with friends. And we were like, okay, we're all going to stay together. We're going to, you know, try and network. We're going to try and meet people. But then it's just like completely cancelled, and nothing's been on for 3 years. And it's just like, what do you do? It is such an important. I know, and you know, as an introvert, I don't want to go.
Yeah.
I don't want to go.
I feel you, Dave.
But it's like. I'm like psyching myself up. I'm like, no, I'm going to go this. I'm just going to go for like 1 weekend. I'm going to put all my energy into this. And it's just like, you know, a month beforehand. It's not on at all.
Yeah.
And it just was like, I don't know. You feel without being able to do that, you just feel,
what now?
how am I going to meet someone?
Yeah.
Like, what am I going to do?
Yeah. There's moments where you sit there and you're stuck in this little rut of what more can I do?
Yeah.
And I feel like I'm in that place a lot.
Yes.
And again,
Yeah.
and like you were saying, like I think now it's kind of this time where I've noticed the shift in the last week or 2 where I'm slowly getting into this place of just have fun with it.
Yeah.
And I did such a good take yesterday because of that. Like I went up to my coach yesterday. We had a training session with him in acting. And I had a script to read. I wanted to go a little bit more on like the badass detective side. And it was just like, what I love working with him for is it's not like, you know, camera rolling action. He loves to say and play.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah, so like it just kind of puts your mind into this place of let's play, let's find this character and just discovering it a little bit. And
because I think, you know, so many of us think, oh, I've got to be so serious about my art. You know, if I want to take this seriously, if I want to have a career, I've got to have this sort of like, for want of a better word, professionalism. But you can have fun and be professional. Like you can play and be professional. Like they're not opposed.
No. And I think if you don't play, it becomes a chore.
Yeah.
It becomes a hard, like you lose your love for it if you don't find the fun and play in it.
Yeah, definitely. And I think, you know, it's like maybe you'll be successful in the short term if you just if you kind of are just super serious about it, but you might not be able to sustain it or form a long-term habit that will get you on the long path.
Yeah.
I think play is also so necessary in those moments. Exactly what you said, like the comparison moments. You know what? You've had a lot of mic time, James. So I just feel like
need to lean in a bit more when you're speaking.
You've had a lot of mic time. But as you were saying,
Amy's
Tash,
speech now.
If anyone's listening, we only have 2 mics between 3, so we're like chopping and changing who's on the mic.
Play is necessary for the moments where, you know, where you get stuck in the comparison or where you feel powerless, because if you're taking it really seriously in those moments, they just feel so heavy. And as you said, like you just get stuck in ruts.
You do.
So you need to have that lightness, that almost like connecting to that inner child.
Well, I'm sure even it would come down to writing. Any sort of creative and artistic person can really find a way to work with this. But and I'm sorry if I'm not allowed to be sharing this, Les, but I learned this on the Les Chantry. I'm sure I can. There's so many things I learned on that course that I'm not going to give out because I paid a lot of money for it. So everyone should pay a lot of money for it. But there was something that he taught us called deep practice, which kind of resonated as well with me from training. That, you know, if you on your training days, if you train hard, go that little bit heavier, go that little bit harder. When it comes to the competition floor, it's time to just let go and trust that you've done the work. Trust that like this is going to be the easier part of it. Because the training days I used to have were 2.5 hours long, just consistent, grueling, fast-paced rest, low chipper kind of workouts, then rest, fast pace, go for it. And it was just grueling on the body. But then when you go to these, you know, when you go to regionals floor or the CrossFit Games, the workout's 12 minutes long. So then your body's just like, oh,
I can do that.
Yeah, like you push yourself to that limit, but it's not that big versus what you do every day.
Yeah.
So then in acting, he taught me something that has helped me separate it a little bit now, where I am using my time with my coach and using my time in class with Sass as play. Like, this is my time to just do what I know, take the tools out of my little tool belt, play around with it, see what works, see what doesn't, and just embarrass myself completely or nail it. But then that's the place you can fail. And then he taught us something called deep practice. And then I schedule in once a week, 45 minutes, and it's supposed to get faster and faster, of putting yourself into a place that's harder than the daily grind.
Interesting.
For that little bit. Because then when you go back to it, it's going to be easier. So it's the same concept as training and being on the comp floor versus that kind of concept. So what he says, he told us to go just print a 2-page script, don't read it, don't analyze it or anything, set a 45-minute timer on your phone, and you've got 45 minutes to learn the lines, do all your work, and everything you would always do. 45 minutes. And once the timer goes off, you stop it, you rip the script up.
Yeah. Oh, amazing.
Because you've just tried to put yourself into this time frame of like, okay, 3, 2, 1, go. Your body's stressed, your body's amped up, you know, you're hyper aware, you're trying to learn these lines, and then it's over.
Yeah.
And you're like, okay, done. Rip it up, throw it in the bin.
Yeah.
Because then when you go back to learning a script and you have the time,
it feels
your body just
luxurious.
goes, oh, whew, this is easy.
It's kind of like, it's like a intense under pressure version of just like giving yourself freedom to make shitty art, which is what we talk about all the time. It's like even though it's like there's 45 minutes to do it, like you're not going to be able to make it perfect, and there's a freedom in that. There's a freedom.
That's why, like, you know, I like to limit my writing session, so I get up at 7:20 and I go to the cafe, and then I have to get to the gym by, you know, I have to leave to the gym by 9:15, so I have to be done, and I have to have done my 500 words by then. So it's just like, I can't be precious about it. I have to just write 500 words. They're going to be like, whatever the quality is, that has to be done by then.
Yeah.
And
then sometimes it's the discoveries in those little moments.
Yeah.
Like that might, you know, it might be for months down the track, years down the track. Even from business side of like point of view, like things like Richard Branson, don't quote me on this, but like there's so many big businessmen out there that had about 10 to 20 businesses before that really one kicked off. Yeah, and they just kept trying. This didn't work, all right, flop that over, let's try this next idea. Then that didn't work, flop it over. Like, you know, they had to go through the brutal process in the beginning. It's kind of the same thing, relative.
I remember Tim Ferriss, do you remember him talking about that in the podcast he did with Susan Cain the other day? He was saying, you know, most people who found these billion-dollar companies, they're just serial entrepreneurs. They're compulsive entrepreneurs. It's just like, well, that's an idea. That idea didn't work, so what's my next idea? That idea didn't work, so what's my next idea? It's like not being precious about those ideas. It's just like, you've got to just keep turning them over.
Also not thinking that it's like the be-all and end-all on one.
Exactly. It's just like taking the pressure off the one, being happy being happy for it to fail. I think a lot of people go, I'm going to spend 10 years writing this novel. I'm going to make it perfect. But then when that novel fails, it's like, it's
too much.
What have I, I put 10 years of my life into that, rather than being like, I'm going to just be happy with, you know, not being perfect, just playing, just sort of getting my novel out there into the world.
Yeah. And I think that shitty art, what you were just talking about there, is an artist's physical view of progress.
Yeah.
Like, it's like, for an actor, it's, you know, even Les was saying this in the intensive I did with him, you should look back on something you did just a week ago and cringe.
Yes.
And it's you know, same thing with writing. You know, you should look back on something you wrote like a month. Yeah, go like, oh my God, where was I going with that?
Yeah.
Or art, you know, like actual physical drawings and paintings. Like, they should be looking back at that. But if you don't have multiple of them, you can't see the level of progress. You can't just look back to something you did a year ago and go, oh, that was shit, I've progressed. Like, you should have
records,
weekly, like things that you're constantly looking back at.
The bad habit I have is that I'm like, oh, have I gotten any better as a writer? I know, I'll go and look at my final draft of my second novel, and I'll compare it to my first draft of my current novel. I'm like, why am I doing that? Like, I have the first draft of that novel, which I know at the time I thought was really shitty. Why am I comparing a perfect, like, not perfect obviously, but my polished version of something to my
unpolished
version? Like,
I'm doing
it. It's so stupid.
Yeah. In terms of how, like, I completely agree, like, we need to be constantly practicing, constantly allowing ourselves to make shitty art so we can look at that progress, and also so we can be constantly playing and having fun and being in touch with our creativity. As someone who is currently not getting a huge amount of booked work, how do you make sure that I know you're learning so much and you're being so curious and you're doing a lot of courses, but how do you make sure you're keeping in touch and and doing all the acting that you want to do so that you can get better? Like, what processes do you have in place to do this?
It's finding different characters for me.
Yeah, fun.
Yeah. And like I for a little while there, I found myself attracted to the victim. Maybe it's the type 4 in us. But a lot of the characters I was doing, you know, I thought there was variety, and then it wasn't until I finished filming them and watched it back and I was like, this is the same woman.
Yeah.
This is like
That's
there's no variety in this. So now it's just like, for example, today I got a role in a little short film with an afters project as a vampire.
Fun.
But a vampire who's repulsed by blood. So like it's just like that's so out of my comfort zone, but I had the best fun auditioning for that.
So cool.
And then yesterday I auditioned, like I think I posted that video, I auditioned for like a character who's really quirky, out there, like, you know, not rigid in any way, very Phoebe from Friends.
Yeah.
Again, it was fun getting into that playful side of me, because for ages, especially when you start acting, a lot of it kind of goes straight to conflict. A lot of it goes straight to like, how well can you emote? Like,
very high emotion. Yeah.
And then I think it's helped me find my range and discover, all right, you know what, that doesn't work for me. Versus, you know, I feel really confident in this place with this character. So it's just like, play a detective, play a doctor, play the patient, play the victim, play the drug dealer, play the vampire. It's just finding all these different levels of you and putting it in there. But as well, it's not going for the safety net, which is the most beautiful part of it all as well. And that's like the biggest thing and the hardest thing, I think, for any actor, because everyone's great actors. Like, they're all good actors, but to take yourself to that level of great is kind of like swallowing that little red pill rather than going for that comfort zone. It's like, what can I do here, which is a little bit crazy, a little bit ridiculous? Like, you know, this is a scene where I'm about to prosecute someone. Maybe I start laughing.
Yeah, cool.
Where do you take out something that makes someone go like, what the fuck
What happened?
Yeah.
My best scenes that I write, I always find like are the ones where I try something a bit weird or different. It's like, I try something with voice. It's, you know, people always say, I'm looking for, you know, agents always say, I'm looking for a novel with voice. Like, what's your, like, I want a strong voice. And then I think, you know, you can forget that. I can go, I'm just going to try and play it safe in this scene. Or you can literally write something crazy and you can write.
And I think what's beautiful with it all, writing, acting, art, is people want to see something that they can relate to that they're too scared to show in everyday life.
Yeah.
Like, that's
nice. I like that.
It's like, again, you know, you don't want to watch someone just, you know, sitting there chatting like every day. We like, people get addicted to reality TV shows because those people are fucking crazy.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Like, and you're just like, why? This is a train wreck, but I can't stop watching. But that's like, you're watching it because it's so different to your everyday.
Yeah.
And for writers, I'm assuming it'd be the same thing where, you know, it's hard, but you have to kind of dive deep into this character's like brutal side.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
You got to find the darkness there a little bit. Like, if you just have a story about everything going perfectly in someone's life, like, no one's going to care about that.
Yeah.
No one's going to care.
Yeah.
And I think this is when we've got to... So what we do already as creatives is really vulnerable. But then when you push it, and then you're like, okay, well, I'm already doing something vulnerable.
Really showing
but
you
now
something
I have to
that,
even go a little bit further. And it's so hard to take that extra step. It's like, I'm already being so vulnerable.
And now I've got to show you this part of me that,
Exactly,
like, you might judge me and go, what a freak. Like, it's... But, like, why care?
Why care?
Yeah.
I mean, this is a good segue, I feel.
Good. Well, that's great, because we need to take a break now, because I need to change the camera over, and we're going to come back in 1 second with the segue.
Okay, great. I want to talk about the challenge that you're doing now. Speaking of not caring what other people think, speaking of putting ourselves in that really vulnerable position, speaking of cringe, tell us about this challenge.
Yes. So... I'm on a 67 days of humiliation and rejection. That's what it was initially called, but now
sounds so brutal.
I know. But now I'm just calling it 67 days of humiliation because I've come to
that sounds way more brutal.
It does, and I find rejection humiliating, so it doesn't really matter.
Great,
and what this is, so again, it was the Les Chantry intensive. I'm getting some serious,
Les.
Les.
You're going to cease and desist letter in our inbox in like 2 weeks' time.
It was like. Everyone took something out of that course. I actually didn't take as much acting out of it than self-discovery. And
same.
Exactly. And it's just working hand in hand.
Yeah.
And what he taught us on Saturday, after I went to the Saturday session, he said, all right, see you later, guys. See you tomorrow. Oh, by the way, today at some point I want you to do something that, like, to embarrass yourself. Embarrass yourself. Do something today that embarrasses yourself. And we're like, okay. So I was kind of thinking about, okay, how can I do this? Like, fully put yourself into this because you're doing this course. Like, you've invested in it. Let's do it. But I was only going to dinner with my mum and dad and my sister. And I was like, you guys have seen me, like, shit my pants. Like, like, what can I really do worse here? And I was driving back home that night and I was listening to 80s pop. You know, it was great news in my family. I was like dancing and I was like, okay, it's come to me. And then I was petrified of every petrol station I was driving past because it was like picking which one I'm going to go do this at. So I decided I'm going to drive into a petrol station and I'm going to sing to the petrol attendant.
You started so... You went for
real
it.
high. Well, he said, like, just really embarrass yourself. And I was like, well, what can I do?
That's the nightmare for 99.999% of people.
Yes. And
maybe
me.
even... Yeah. And you, yeah.
So I was driving past... I was like, not that one. Not ready yet. And I drove past another one. I'm like, nope. I should have actually done it at those because I ended up picking one closer to home. But...
See him again.
I drove into it. I was like, this is the one. I drove in... walked laps of the small little aisle, just talking myself into it because there's police officers in there. And I was like, they're going to think I'm fucking crazy.
They're going to arrest you.
So I grabbed a cornetto. I was like, I need a gift after this. Grabbed a vanilla cornetto, went to the thing to pay. Thank God there was no one waiting behind me or anything. And I put it down. I was like, can I sing you a song? And he just said yes. And I was just
love that he said yes.
Yeah.
I know. He was like,
he's an
yes?
improv
Is
guy.
it Australians don't say no?
Yeah, well, that's what I came to discover.
Yeah.
So anyway, so I just started singing to him. I was like, you're just too good to be true.
It was so
And yeah, same. So then I finished and I'm like, well, thank you. That's $5 for the ice cream. Okay, bye. And I walked out and I couldn't even open the wrapper. I was just like shaking so much. But then I was on this weird high. Like I wanted to go do it again.
Yeah.
Maybe because his reaction was so lovely.
Bless this man.
Yeah, bless this guy. I changed his day. But yeah, so I was just on this high of like, oh my God, what else can I do? And that was so much fun. I can't wait to tell Les how much fun that was the next day. And he ended up telling us the next day that the challenge was based that it's like evidently proven it has minimum 67 consecutive days of embarrassment to remove that like gene of embarrassment out of your body, or like that
The cringe gene.
Yeah, that kind of
Like to
need
suppress
to
it.
belong.
Yeah.
What went wrong when we were 14 to 18 years old, where we were finding these identities, and we put on the identity that just helped us belong.
Yeah, yeah.
And that identity is kind of what has fucked us up a little bit. You know, it's like stopped you from exploring yourself, exploring your weirdness, exploring your little antics.
It's so true, isn't it? Like, I think
It is.
so many of us are so afraid to embarrass ourselves at all, or to even to tell other people that we want to do something that's a little bit out of the ordinary.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
as
And
you were
what will
saying,
people
it's
think
like-
of me?
as
And
you were
then
saying when
how
you
much you
started-
say that to yourself, oh my God, these people, like, what are people going to think of me? And then
Yes.
like you stop and you're like, what does it matter?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like you were saying when you started acting, you had to, you were like, you felt like you had to say, oh, you know, I'm just doing something for fun. I'm just like, learning something. It's just, you know, the same with me when I'm even still today with writing. I'm like, oh, you know, I'm just enjoy it. It's just good for me, you know. Where it's like, no,
you got to own
Yeah,
it.
I know.
Yeah. As
and it's
soon as you
because I
own
don't want to
it.
have that awkward conversation with someone. Like,
Yeah.
I just can't. But why? Who cares?
Yeah, who cares? And then what's even more brutal is turn that conversation back on yourself. So as soon as you catch yourself saying like, why am I trying to impress this person, or why am I trying to change myself to belong here? And if you kind of ask yourself,
Yeah.
like, why are you so ashamed of being yourself?
Yeah.
And then that makes you kind of go, whoa.
yeah.
Yeah, so yeah, like you're in your own body, you're in your own head every day. You may as well impress yourself.
So true.
And
Love that.
yeah, like you know, do something that's going to make you go, you know, like I've decided that I'm going to be uncompromisingly playful. I want to go back to this little childhood, like girl in me that, you know, I might do a bit of like stupid things, silly things, not to offend anyone else, but for myself.
Yeah.
And yeah, so then after he spoke to us about it, I think you can look it up on a TED Talk, and it was a guy in the States that went for 100 days of rejection. That's what it was all kind of off the basis of. I'm going to butcher his name. It's like Zhao Zhang. And what he did in the States was just every day he had to find a way for people to say no to him. So it's just pure rejection. I'm like, really, realistically, actors should just get jobs as telemarketers.
Yeah.
Because that's a way you just get rejected every day or hung up on every day. It's the easiest way to go.
That's actually interesting. One of the most successful actors I've ever met was a telemarketer.
Yeah. And that would have helped him.
And now she...
or
no,
her, sorry.
It was... now she's... Michelle, so she's on... she's in Play School. She's...
Utopia,
like a bunch... She's just super successful now.
Yeah.
And she was like... she was a telemarketer.
Yeah.
That was her job while
she
she was
doesn't
trying to...
give a shit.
Yeah, but that would have helped in like so many levels. Just getting rejection and being resilient, teaching yourself that like it's okay, moving on.
Yes.
So I did that for a day. That was one of my challenges in the 67 days. I put my phone on private and just called random businesses selling
great.
Google AdWords. My biggest fear was that they would be like, "Yes, I've actually been after Google AdWords," and I'm like, "Shit, like let my manager call you back." So yeah, I've just been coming up with different ideas every day to embarrass myself. Like,
How many days in are you now?
Today will be day 21. So there's so many
Oh my
more
God, there's
days
a lot of days to go.
And you were supposed to start at a 1 out of 10, right? And build to a 10.
Yeah,
But you
so I started
at
at
a
8 out of 10.
Yeah.
Because to be honest with you, like, pooing or weeing myself in public is a 10 out of 10. That's definitely, like, that's the worst thing I could do. Again, you don't want to do something
illegal. Are you
illegal.
gonna do that on the last day?
No. I'm thinking of, like, busking on the last
okay,
day.
Oh, nice.
But,
Can you sing?
no, but, like, monologues.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, I'm
Interesting.
just stand there saying monologues
Love
in
it.
public. Yeah. So like then I went back down to simple, like just got a coffee with my shirt inside out. I asked for a rejection. I tried to get a free scone with my hot cross bun. She said no. I told a waitress at the cafe a joke. She was so lovely. Yeah, it was just the worst joke ever. What else did I do? I asked the lady at Harris Farm if I could sing a song through the loudspeaker. She said no because she'd get fired.
And you just, as soon as they say no, you just go, okay. And you
Yeah,
just,
that's your walk off. Yeah. I asked 3 strangers for a high five. Which one did you just
did you get rejected for
Pooed
that?
in a public place
and announced it. Yeah. So look, that one's the best one so far. That's probably why dressing up as a peacock and walking through Motorvale wasn't so scary.
No.
Because I don't do number 2 in public.
Of course.
It has to, even if I'm stuck in a situation where I have to, I'm on the hunt for like a disabled toilet where it's like just by myself in a cubicle.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's been a big thing for me. So I was like, okay, this is it. Like, and I was in Port Stephens, so no one knows
nice.
me here.
Yeah.
And so I did it, and I flushed the toilet. I walked out, and I stood in the middle, and I just went, I pooed, and I walked out.
Wait, who was there? Like in public?
Yeah, there was a lady at the sink. She didn't want to look at me. She probably thought I was a little bit crazy.
Oh my
shit.
God, I love it.
You would die at that, Amy.
I would. I mean, the reason why I so desperately want to talk about this is because it challenges me so much.
It has challenged me, but then like what's getting scary now? So like yesterday I went and caught up with a friend at dinner and I was waiting for her, and while I was waiting there I decided I have to get 10 selfies.
Okay, cool. That's a good one.
Yeah, because I'm sitting by myself and I'm not in that millennial generation where I'm comfortable to do that. So I sat there like proper putting my phone up, getting into angles, and it was like I was shaking doing it.
I'd have the same response. I would find that really awkward.
Yeah, and then now it's gotten to a point where I'm not afraid to embarrass myself. I'm afraid to talk to strangers. So I'm trying to come up with ideas
Of interacting.
Yeah, so I asked a
Super
lady at
interesting.
Woolies to play scissors, paper, rock with me. I walked through
What
about
did she say?
15 aisles back to back, just talking myself up to doing that. And then when I
say no?
stopped her, no, she played with me. But then the hardest part was like, sorry, this isn't going to make any sense, but do you want to play a game of scissors, paper, rock with me? And she's like, why? And I'm like, I can't tell you.
Wow.
Because I'm not allowed to tell. I'm not allowed to justify it.
Actually, this girl came up to me in the shops and she couldn't tell me why we were playing. Was it was she
Am
going
I
to
being
die or
punked?
she lost or something?
No, so yeah, and we just played like best of 3. And then I was like,
Who won?
Thank you. She did.
Nice.
Oh.
Yeah.
Winner.
And then I stopped a lady in Coles. I chose someone who was wearing a mask, so that made a bit more sense. And that was cheating. And I was just like, Carol, oh my gosh, how are you? And she was like, oh, no, so it's not Carol. I'm like, oh, wow, you look so much like Carol. It's just, yeah. So just like little moments like that of just targeting strangers, not to embarrass them, but more just get conversation happening. I had to get 3 high fives from people. I had 2 no's.
Like when we feel residual embarrassment. Like she probably felt embarrassed for you. not for herself in that moment.
Like that's a petrol attendant. I think he was actually embarrassed for me.
Yes.
Yeah.
But it's quite a strong feeling embarrassed for someone else.
It is.
And I also think creatives, we're often very sensitive, often very aware of what other people are thinking, and makes us extra vulnerable to feeling cringe and feeling embarrassed, because we're often in other people's heads, like how are they going to respond to us? Which is interesting, because as creatives, we need to not give a shit so we can be as vulnerable as possible, so we can play and discover and be cringe.
And you need to
learn
be
from cringe.
yourself.
Exactly.
Like, so again, there's so many stories about the acting world where I heard the story about Naomi Watts with Mulholland Drive. And she was auditioning for things.
The craziest movie I have ever seen.
I know, a bit wacky out there. Yeah.
Well, it's very what's his face?
But
Him,
that director. Who, is it not Peter Weir?
No, it's insane one. Excellent.
Not Aronofsky.
It's David Finch, isn't
David
it?
Finch.
Yeah.
David Lynch.
David Lynch.
Yeah.
Sorry, Finch.
Yeah.
David Lynch. So she was doing audition after audition, not getting anything, and they were just like, nah, like, don't worry. And then she auditioned for Mulholland Drive, and they were like, nah, next. And David Finch happened to go to Lynch. Sorry, Finchy, love you, Finch. David Lynch ended up going to a party that she happened to be at, and it was supposedly like she was just standing on the balcony with a friend, animated, being herself, and he literally just walked up to her and was like, "Where was that in the room today?"
Oh shit!
And then like gave her the second chance to come in, but it's just like that just goes to show you
how
who you're coming
you
in as, to show to someone else how you think that this is who they want to see, when you're plain boring.
Yeah.
And then when you are yourself, it's such a beautiful thing. You're not going to be liked by everyone, but in turn, there are people who are going to fucking love you.
Yeah, this is one of the greatest gifts that we can have as creators, which is why I think this is such an important, it's such an important task that all of these
challenges.
All of these challenges. I just feel like it would be so liberating for so many of us, but so many of us wouldn't dare.
I will never do it.
Yeah.
I'm too scared.
It's
intense.
There's days where I'm like...
Like, I know it would help me as a writer, but I feel like it's even more, it's more applicable as an actor.
And I have days where it's a chore, like today. Like today I just want to break and I don't want to think about it.
And like the central nervous system stress.
Yeah, is on overdrive of having to go do it.
Yeah.
Yes.
I feel like you're like removing all the different lenses. Like, I'm acting for the director, I'm acting for, or I'm doing this for someone else. Like all the different lenses that we create through, you're just like slowly removing them.
That little
and
layer.
doing it and just becoming who it is you are, which at the end of the day is literally all we need to do, because that's why we're here. Like that's the gift, that we are unique. And when we're trying to pretend to be someone else, or we're trying to be what they want us to be, we're only holding ourselves back.
Yeah, and I think you're almost butchering your own work for that reason. Like I think if you're doing your work for someone else, then it's never going to be satisfying for you.
Yeah.
And if you do something that just makes you so happy, there is an audience out there. It doesn't matter.
Agreed.
And I honestly believe you're better off, and I think you promote this as well, you're always better off having an audience that loves you, that is so dedicated to you, but smaller than just being liked by everyone. Yeah.
100%.
Like even in the acting industry, and it could be everywhere, in writing, in art, in painting, and like in the art world and everything, it's, if you're loved or hated, you'll be working.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And if you're indifferent, they won't, like,
Well, there's like a famous story of an influencer who I think she had like 6 million followers, and she went to sell her apparel brand and sold like 32 t-shirts.
Like everyone
from 6 million. It's just like there's no, they just were just obviously just, apathetic.
It was, following for the wrong reasons.
Yeah.
And like, I think you're always better to create this like audience that are just so supportive of who you are as a person and just so true to yourself than anything else.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Have you noticed any change in your internal dialogue, the way you speak to yourself, the way you're presenting yourself to the world since doing these challenges?
Massively.
Tell us more.
Massively. In my, like, just even in the scenes I'm working on, just like, because a lot of the time I would go to class and I'd get told the same thing. It was just, let go. And I'm like, what do you mean let go? I literally feel like I just let everything out in that scene. What do you mean let go? He's like, you're still holding on, you're still protecting Tash. He's like,
so
you're in here. He goes, I don't want apologetic Tash, I want bitch Tash. Like he was like, just bring her out, let her fucking roar.
When I write, I feel that exactly that. It's like when I'm least in my head, it's flowing the best and I'm writing the best. It's like when I'm the most conscious of what I'm doing, it's worse.
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, well, this
and then you start to overthink.
Exactly. Overthink and all the great ideas come into you. You're like, no.
It's not right. It's not,
Rather than just letting them come out and be on the page and I can get rid of them later if I need to. It's like, I'm just holding myself back.
Yeah. And so for the only thing I'm still early days of it and I'm still fighting that inner monologue.
Yeah.
It's only recently that I have actually happily said like, I am an actress and I will be an actress.
Yes.
Like that is, like, I'm so set on that. I don't see anything else now. And then it's just made this little fire in me go, But
we think when we admit that it's going to make, like, I don't know, it's going to crush us or make us embarrassed or something, or I don't know.
Or it's going to be like too vulnerable, like as in like once we tell people and then if we fail,
you'll be judged. You'll be judged. Yes, that's a big one. But like I would rather tell myself that I really gave it a red hot go. Yeah.
Oh my God, the way you're betraying yourself when you don't fully take up space.
Yes.
It's so sad.
Yeah. And it's like as well, like when you're about to give up, it's always nice to stop and say to yourself, did I really give it everything to make it worth giving up for?
Yes. Yeah.
But like that's when I think you can say like, that's when you can stop and go, no, and maybe a new project will start.
Yeah.
Because I think you really have to give it a solid crack before you can actually give up for yourself.
Yes,
oh my God,
definitely.
yes.
Because you'll only really be disappointing yourself. Everyone else will just be super supportive, especially friends and family. They're going to be like, oh, you know, sorry, next thing. And they move on with their lives. Because everyone's really just self-centered at the end of the day. You're caring about yourself.
Nobody really cares.
Yeah.
Like, no. And then that's what, like with acting, they're saying the same thing. No one cares about your career more than you do.
Yeah.
So like you may as well hustle. You may as well do what you need to do.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's...
I always feel like if I write 10 novels and none of them ever get published, like I'll at least feel like I gave it a go.
Yeah.
Like I feel like I didn't leave anything on the floor, you know? It was I did everything I could, and if it doesn't work out, then like it didn't work out.
Yeah.
But I did everything.
You did everything you could. Yeah. And so now for me it's just discovering me as a person.
Oh my God, I love this.
It's all it is. Like that's what acting has really been. It's and then I'm opening these channels for these characters to come out through me.
Yeah.
Because realistically at the end of the day, I'm their advocate. Like I'm advocating for them.
Yeah.
They're speaking through me.
Yeah.
So you always have to find ways to relate to them, and then therefore you have to have so many facets to yourself, and then you can't just be this one person because not every character is going to be this one person.
I always say if you like commit to your creativity, you're committing to looking at all of yourself. Like people
even
want
the gross,
especially the gross, and because that will always make itself known. If you're going to commit to your creativity, you will see the darkest parts of yourself, and you've got to figure out how you're going to use that, how you're going to like alchemize that into your art, basically. But there's no way of committing yourself to creativity and not having to do the work, the internal work. There's just, you can't avoid it. Like you can't, otherwise you're just going to be skirting around the edges of art.
And your work won't progress if you're not progressing internally. It's
a really, really interesting thing. And often when people feel really stuck or like they're just not getting anything, like they're not changing or there's not any progress, I'm like, well, are you able to look at what's happening for you? Because and they see art as like an external thing where it's not.
No, you're portraying yourself.
It's you.
Your body is your instrument in your, like, you know, for an actor the body is the instrument. This is actually my you know, bread and butter, what will be. And you know, for writers it's all internal to me. It's the internal experience you've had and everything you're always experiencing, you know, with relationships, with the world you're seeing. It's just showing people your point of view. And if you're tapping into what they want to see, then it's not fun.
Nah.
No, because someone's like, I don't want to see what I've seen. I want to see what you've seen.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
And it's like, you're not trying to perfect yourself as a person because that's impossible. You're just trying to excavate yourself more. You're just trying to get deeper into who you actually
That's
are.
a great point.
Yeah,
Like,
no,
we're not
sorry,
looking for
I don't think perfection exists.
No.
Yeah.
I think imperfection is the
Magic.
most perfect thing you
yeah.
could ever
Me too,
have.
like-
Yeah. And but it's owning it.
Yeah. Because
That's
no
the
one
hardest
can-
part.
No one, it's, you're not going to write anything interesting from, I don't know, a kind of bland sunshine and rainbows kind of perspective, I think. Not that I'm saying that you don't have to be depressed or anything to be a great artist, but it's like, you've got to find the pain in you. You've got to find all those different parts of you.
Exactly what you were
Loving
saying.
you,
Yeah, loving you, everything, all the stronger emotions.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And all the not like all the nuances.
All the
It's-
nuances,
I think
yeah.
what we're saying is it encompasses everything.
Everything.
Yeah. Yeah, I completely
Yeah,
agree.
like I'm a playful child, but I'm a psycho bitch.
Yeah,
like
yeah.
it's you
How are you
find
gonna-
all
Yeah.
those little things in you. Yeah.
And learning how to like hone them and skill them for when they're needed.
Needed.
It's so fun.
Yeah.
So fun. Amazing.
Yeah, because you always love to see a character who makes an interesting choice rather than like a safe choice or a boring choice. It's like, I always find that in my books, I'm always like, well, how can I make the kind of craziest thing happen here? How can I make the most trouble for my character? And they're always interesting. They're always the good moments that I'm always proud of.
Them
Yeah.
playing it safe.
Yes, and playing it safe.
Yeah. It's funny how they always would say, like, with old school actors and actresses, directors and producers would say, these are people you want on set, but not at your dinner party.
Yeah, great.
So true,
I
yeah.
love
Yeah,
that.
Love
because
that.
like
Yeah.
it's just like they will do the job, they'll get the job done for your work, but then at the dinner party they're kind of a punish
yeah.
because
Yeah,
they're very
just like me
different.
and you, Amy.
Yeah. How much time do we have? I have one more conversation. That I
Yeah,
really
we have
wanna
time we have as much time as you want. I just have to just restart the camera again.
Okay, I
But-
just want to talk very briefly, Tash, about what it was like telling people at the beginning, and what was the reception like of explaining to your friends and family that you're now moving into a very new creative space. When everyone, I guess, saw you as a coach, saw you as a business owner, and how was it kind of? I mean, we've already kind of touched upon how hard it was to sit in this I'm an actor, but how are the responses of people? Like, was it challenging?
Massively.
Yeah, okay.
So those people who've known me almost my whole life, or at least knew me when I was my stomach? People who knew me when I was like 16 to 20 knew that I was so unapologetically saying that I will be an actress when I was a kid. So when you're growing up, when people will be like, what do you want to be when you grow up? No shame. Actress.
It's the same thing with
Actress.
writing as well. And then I forgot about it.
Yeah, I found this. When we hit year 7, we had to create a timeline of our life, and I found it
Oh my
like
God,
on a
that's
piece
cool.
of paper on a canvas, and it was just like, I was born, I went to school, a random little time, and then, got married, had a baby, traveled the world, and then I'm standing on a stage,
Oh my God, I love that.
performing.
Cool, yeah.
And it's just
Love the
like,
order of that too.
I know.
Like it's like I like that because you haven't been acting since you're 18. Like you've come into acting now.
Yeah,
It's kind of prophetic.
so I did it quite religiously when I was younger. Like, so I did it all through high school. It was my HSC. I did the GP. I did the IP, and then from there I went into studying outside of school. I even got my first gig through a performance. I performed for a year as a theatre education performer. So I was
cool.
driving around to primary schools performing to
nice.
kids about bullying and stereotypes and image. Funny. And but then I was like, okay, I love this. I'm going to start auditioning. And I went for screen roles and audition rooms, and it was brutal to me. I was 20, didn't know myself, in this weird place.
Yeah.
And getting rejected, or even what's worse with this industry is not knowing why. Like, they don't even say to you, you were like,
Yeah.
nothing. You just hear nothing back.
Yeah,
And you
it's
have
like-
to move on from that.
It's like writing.
Yeah, exactly. You'll never hear, unless you actually ask someone for feedback, you're never going to hear anything back. And it was too brutal for me, so I left, and my mum was kind of like, thank God.
Yeah.
Like, I'm so glad that phase is out of your
Yeah.
life. Let's start something more like serious now. So I did that, and I couldn't sit through uni. Uni wasn't for me. I was never like that. So then it was like, all right, fitness, it is. You know what I mean? So I went down that track and worked as a coach, did all that. So when it came back to it, it was almost like it's come back to me now at a point where I even laugh about this, that it's the perfect time for me.
Yeah.
I've gone through the process of trust the process with training. So I know
You
that
know
just
how to trust.
I know how to trust.
Yeah.
And there's so many, especially younger people that I watch in what I'm doing now. It's so hard for me because it's really your own journey.
Yeah.
And like, as much as I can say, like, just trust it, it
You can't.
falls on dead ears.
Sean
Yeah,
was
like,
telling me a story about you the other day, which I don't know if it's true because it's Sean, but he was like, it took Tash 2 years to get her first muscle up, and it was like every week, multiple times a week, you were training tiny little drills, just hoping, well, just trusting that you'd eventually get there. Until 2 years.
I trusted that. I just had to drill it into me. Yeah.
If you don't know what a muscle up is, it's getting from a dead hang all the way over a bar or a set of rings up into a extended arm position. It's really hard.
It is.
Really,
It is
really
one of the most difficult movements in CrossFit.
Yeah.
Even in gymnastics, I would have to say.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
and it's true. I did that every day. I hone in on something. I have tunnel vision on things, and I have to get it done. And I think once I taught myself that you might not have the easiest way around. I might not be of ex-gymnast background. You can come in and just knock it out. But I taught myself that if I just put the work in, if I'm diligent, if I'm consistent and I'm dedicated, it will pay off.
Yeah.
And it's the same thing in this.
Yeah.
But at this, like, acting is hard because you can get stuck of training the same thing. And if
It's
that's
not as clean cut.
No,
Yeah.
you have to learn all these different tools and directions.
Yeah.
Because sometimes the script has come along and I've read it and I didn't even have to do any work. I was like,
Yeah.
I
Got
just
it.
resonate with this girl.
Yeah.
And then sometimes the script is given to me and I'm like, I have to go through my Ivana Chubbuck technique.
Yeah.
I have to go through the verbs and actions. I have to go through, personalization.
And it's not always
and-
obvious when you nail it. Like, you know
No.
when you get a muscle up because you're up above the rings.
Yeah.
Whereas,
But you don't know. You don't always know why you're doing it.
Yeah.
And so when I came back to it, it was hard for me. People who know that I've always had this in me were kind of like mad. Even my mum was quite proud, but I think she was a little bit proud of like, oh, you've got your bread and butter going.
Yeah.
I'm glad that
Safer
you're going
now.
back to a passion.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we'll see where it goes. But I think they were just scared that I was going to be living in like a 10-bedroom share house,
Yeah.
paying eating noodles every day. Like that's what they were just fearing for me, which would have been so much fun. But so like they were okay with it, and even my friends were like, "Mad, I'm so glad you're going back to that." We're telling new people, it was really hard for me to justify.
I think especially like, say at the gym, we look at you and we're like, you're in such a comfortable place in your job, like you're a master at coaching, like it doesn't really, they're like, well, why wouldn't you just stay in something that you're really comfortable and good at already?
Yeah.
I
Do you think to go back to the beginning is not something we do a lot
No.
as humans?
No. And even just that was stepping out of my comfort zone.
Yeah.
Because it did start off as a hobby.
Yeah.
But CrossFit started off as a hobby.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
And it was like, it was just one of those COVID things. I need something that's not physical and fitnessy. I want a challenge. Maybe I'll learn another language. And then I was like, no, I've always loved acting. Maybe I'll just find a weekly class to go to. But then I didn't. I just went full ham to the top, as I do. And then as soon as I dived into it, I was in the ocean and I'm swimming.
I love that.
Okay.
And I'm loving it. And
Yeah.
I remember there were a few people when they found out what class I was going to, and I was like, oh, I got school on Monday. Oh, what school? Acting. Oh, you're acting. Yes.
I know. Yep, I know that. We know that response.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So challenging.
We
Yeah,
have
and I
one-
feel bad for people because I can imagine that they don't intend to come
No.
across that
No,
way.
I know it is. They just haven't. They
But
People
it
don't know
does
how to
put that
respond.
block on you.
It
Oh,
does.
it does.
Yeah, as soon as they react that certain way, your body just shuts down.
You want to
Yeah.
hide.
Yeah, and then you go back to that point of, oh, it's just a hobby.
It's just a hobby.
Yeah.
Yeah,
okay.
I'm not doing anything serious
Yeah.
with it. It's just kind of like, I was
Yeah.
doing this, now I want to do something else, and then I put myself in that own little rut.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now we have 40 seconds left on the camera, so
Oh
I'm
my
going to
goodness.
wrap us up now.
Okay.
But we could keep going after that. But I feel like
This was good.
Yeah, this
Thank
is-
you.
yeah.
we can have a part 2 later.
Okay. Part 2, when I get my first paid gig, I'll tell you about
Yes,
that.
that's a really good idea, actually.
So thank you, Tash, so much for coming on. Thank you for being vulnerable with us. Thank you for sharing your journey with us. It's been awesome.
Yeah, we're so
Right.
grateful.
Yeah, thank
So
you
grateful.
guys.
It's so weird because now I'm
So
just
good.
going to talk to you again straight after this. And I have to it's like when you're walking towards your car and you both go
The same direction, yeah.
Perfect example of
yeah.
cringe.
And
Well, thank
Amy and I
you.
will see everyone next time.
Yeah.
Yeah. But thanks for having me.
Pleasure. We're grateful.